So I am a scientist, like I said before.
正如我之前所说的，我是一个科学家。
And I have led 12 expeditions into the radiation exclusion zone resulting from the Chernobyl accident.
作为一个科学家呢，我曾经12次带领一个团队到切尔诺贝利那个核事故的爆发点的地方去做考察。
You will see here a photo from the television cable network CNN of me in the largest abandoned city in the world, Pripyat.
OK， 所以大家现在看到的这个照片是美国有线新闻电视网上的照片，那背景是切尔诺贝利，这个是世界上最大的被废弃的城市。
You can see the Chernobyl reactor right behind my head to the right.
大家看到切尔诺贝利事故造成的那个辐射区，就是在我的头的右后方。
I also led 6 expeditions to the radioactive contamination zone in Fukushima, Japan.
我也曾经6次前往日本的福岛核辐射区进行考察。
So I'm just showing you that I am a scientist and active in the world of science.
那我只是跟大家展示我是一个科学家，那我是一个非常活跃的在世界上范围内都做很多科学研究的一个科学家。
Where I did my science was the protection of people, especially the young people, exposed to high levels of radiation in Russia and Japan.
我的研究主要是如何保护在俄罗斯和中国受高辐射影响的人群，特别是年轻人。
But for today, what I wanted to show you is that large numbers of the great scientists have followed Christ and the Bible for the last 150 years.
今天我想要给大家展示的是，在过去的150年中，有许多伟大的科学家都跟随耶稣并且相信圣经。
Now, some of you may have been to some of my other talks where I talked about scientists farther back in history, hundreds of years ago.
那有些人也许曾经参加过我以前的一些这个讲坛，那我谈论的是100年之前的一些科学家，伟大的科学家。
Today, we will focus on recent times.
今天我们会着重关注近代的科学家。
And these scientists that were everyone recognized as great in their fields, they declared their allegiance to Jesus Christ and the Bible.
那这些伟大的科学家们呢，也就是在现代科学时代，也就是近150年间，他在其领域内是被公认为杰出的科学家，都宣称他们忠于耶稣和圣经。
One early example of this was the Declaration of 1864.
那一个早期的例子就是1864年的一份宣言。
This was known as the Declaration of Students of the Natural and Physical Scientists.
这个宣言叫做《自然科学与物理科学学生宣言》。
Over 700 of the leading great scientists of the time affirmed their confidence in the scientific integrity of the Bible.
当时有717位顶尖的科学家肯定了他们对圣经科学完整性的信心。
Among the hundreds of great scientists of the time signing this, I will talk to you of only 2, James Joule and Adam Sedgwick.
那 对于当时签署这份宣言的伟大科学家中呢，有两位，我会谈论两位，一位是詹姆斯·焦尔，另一位是亚当·塞奇威克。
First was James Joule. He was considered the chief founder of thermodynamics as a scientific discipline.
其中一位是詹姆斯·焦尔，他被认为是热力学的首席创始人。
Joule discovered the constant known as the mechanical equivalent of heat.
焦尔的发现被称为供热当量。
Made it possible the quantitative conversion of heat energy into mechanical energy.
这使得将热能转换为机械能成为可能。
This is measured worldwide today as a unit called the joule, named after him.
焦耳这个在全世界范围内广泛使用的单位，就是以他的名字命名的。
My friends in China who are scientists and graduate students have all told me they learned about the joule as a measurement of heat.
我有一位朋友，他在中国，他是一位研究生他告诉我，他们学习的这个单位焦耳。
Though many people did not know he was a great Christian as well as a great scientist.
但是很多人不知道的是，他既是一位成功的科学家，他也是一位基督徒。
This conversion factor led directly to the formulation of the law of conservation of energy.
这个换算因子直接促进了能量守恒定律的制定。
This is the most basic and universal of all scientific laws.
这是所有科学定律中最基本、最普遍的。
Now considered the first law of thermodynamics.
现在被称为第一热力学定律。
I think it's appropriate that the privilege of making such a vital discovery as the first law of thermodynamics was given by God to a man of sincere Christian faith.
那我认为呢，出于神合适的安排神赐给一位敬虔的基督徒，也就是詹姆斯·焦尔这样一个殊荣，就是发现了热力学第一定律，这是一个很重要的发现。
Though he was only one of among hundreds of scientists who signed the famous Declaration of 1864, affirming these great scientists' confidence in the Bible.
焦尔是签署1864年宣言的100位科学家之一，在这个宣言中，许多伟大的科学家肯定了他们对圣经的信心。
I'll also speak to you of another signer of that document, Adam Sedgwick.
那我还要说另一位签署了这个宣言的另一位科学家，就是亚当·塞奇威克。
I thought you would be interested in him because he is a famous geologist who was also friends with Charles Darwin, and he strongly opposed evolution.
那我觉得大家应该会对他很感兴趣，因为他是一个著名的地质学家同时他也是达尔文的朋友，但是他却强烈的反对进化论。
Adam Sedgwick is famous for identifying and naming the major rock systems known as Cambrian and Devonian.
他以识别和命名寒武纪和泥盆纪这两个主要的岩石系统而闻名。
Which ironically were used by evolutionists to try and confirm evolution.
但具有讽刺意义的是，这被进化论者用来尝试肯定进化论。
Now, although Sedgwick was a friend, a close personal friend of Charles Darwin, he always strongly opposed evolution.
尽管塞奇威克曾经是达尔文非常亲近的朋友，但是他却总是强烈的反对进化论。
Sedgwick was a longtime professor of geology at Cambridge University.
塞奇威克曾经在剑桥大学担任了很长时间的地质学教授。
He was also a dedicated pastor and Bible-believing Christian.
他同时也是一位敬虔的牧师和相信圣经的基督徒。
That is always personally appealing to me because I also am a scientist and I am also a pastor, like Adam Sedgwick.
就像亚当一样，那我自己呢也是一个牧师，同时也是一个科学家。
There are many scientists who do this.
那有许多的科学家是这么做的。
Sedgwick was always an opponent of Darwinian evolution.
他一直反对达尔文的进化论。
And he made the prediction that the result of this theory would be devastatingly harmful to the world.
并且做出了这样的预测，该理论的，也就是进化论的结果将会对这个世界造成毁灭性的破坏。
Let's talk about John Ambrose Fleming, universally acknowledged as the father of electronics and also a strong opponent of evolution.
那我们下一个谈论的就是约翰·安布罗斯·弗莱明，他是被全球都能够就被全球誉为电子之父。那他同时也是一个反进化论者。
Fleming devised the first electron tube, revolutionizing electronics.
弗莱明他设计了第一个电子管，这彻底改变了电子学。
He did research with Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb, Maxwell, another great Christian scientist, and Marconi, the inventor of the radio.
那他并且与发明灯泡的托马斯·爱迪生，还有那个一个基督徒科学家麦克斯韦，还有无线电的发明者马可尼一起做研究。
Professor of electrical engineering at the University of London for 40 years.
他在伦敦大学担任了40年的电气工程教授。
Fleming was an active Christian apologist. That's someone who intellectually defends Christianity.
弗莱明他是一位活跃的基督教护教学家，也就是在知识上捍卫基督信仰的人。
That's, of course, what we are doing here today. This is Christian apologist.
就像我们今天在做的事情，这个就是在做基督教的护教学。
And he wrote a major book debating against evolution.
他写了一本书，是批判进化论的。
He was president of the Victoria Institute, which for 150 years has brought together Christian faith and advances in scientific knowledge.
他是维多利亚学院的主席。那在那150年中呢，他汇集了许多基督信仰和科学进步的知识。
And Fleming was part of the evolution protest movement.
那弗莱明他也参与了反对进化论的运动。
The Victoria Institute is still active today with the widely respected scientific journal, Faith and Thought.
维多利亚学院至今仍然活跃，他们有一个广受尊敬的杂志的期刊，叫科学和思想。
I'm hoping to introduce you to the fact that there are many large groups of scientists who are Christians and are still active today.
那我想跟大家说，现在仍然有许多的科学家，他们仍然就是非常的活跃。许多基督徒科学家，他们现在仍然非常活跃。
Talk about Douglas Dewar. He was the scientist who founded the 20th century evolution protest movement.
道格拉斯·杜瓦，他是一位开启了20世纪抗议进化论运动的科学家。
He is a graduate of Cambridge University, and he and he authored books in favor of evolution early in his career.
他毕业于剑桥大学，并且在他早期的职业生涯中，他撰写了许多关于维护进化论的书。
After many years of active research in ornithology, the science of study of birds, he came to the conclusion that Darwinian evolution was not scientifically credible.
经过了许多年对鸟类学的积极研究，他得出的结论就是达尔文的进化论在科学上是不可信的。
Dewar became a Christian at age 50, much later in life, and dedicated his life as a scientist to show how the Bible and science are in agreement.
杜瓦在50岁的时候成为基督徒，之后他以一个科学家的身份致力于向人们展示圣经和科学的一致性。
Dewar founded and for many years led the evolution protest movement among scientists in the 20th century and wrote many books debating the scientific basis for evolution.
杜瓦创立并且带领许多20世纪的科学家来一同参与抗议进化论的运动，并且他撰写了许多书籍来反驳进化论的科学基础。
I'm showing you just one of the many books here, which were highly respected, a challenge to evolutionists.
那我现在向大家展示这其中的一本书，就是叫对进化论者的一个挑战。
Then there was Paul Lemon. He was an articulate 20th century scientist and also an opponent of evolution.
下面这个人是保罗·拉莫因他是20世纪非常能言善道的科学家，同时他也是一个反进化论的者。
He was president of the Geological Society of France and director of the prestigious Natural History Museum of Paris.
他是法国地质学会主席，他也是著名的巴黎自然历史博物馆的馆长。
Lemon had been a dedicated evolutionist, and after years of research, he came to the conclusion that he vigorously opposed evolution.
拉莫因曾是一个执着的进化论者，后来经过多年的研究，他得出的结论就是要开始大力的反对进化论。
He spoke out about the evolutionary ideas led the Nazis to attack his native France in World War II, based on evolutionary principles.
那他宣称因为纳粹受到进化论的思想的影响，他在二战中去袭击他的家乡法国。
He vigorously turned against evolution.
所以他就开始大力的反对进化论。
As editor of the Encyclopedia Française, he boldly wrote this quote: "The theory of evolution is impossible. At base, in spite of appearances, no one any longer believes in it."
作为法国百科全书的编辑，他大胆地写道：“进化论是不成立的，尽管外表看来不是这样的，但是从根本上来说，根本没有人再相信进化论了。”
Evolution is a kind of dogma which the priests no longer believe, but which they maintain for their people.
进化论就像一种教条主义，宣扬它的人呢不再相信它，但是却继续宣扬，想要人们继续相信它。
It is interesting that no French scientist openly challenged this statement at the time it was published.
但是很有趣的是，在这个声明公开发表的时候，没有法国的科学家公开质疑过这个声明。
Which shows what respect people had for Dr. Lemon and I think, the truth of the statement that he made here.
那我认为呢，有两个原因，其中是因为这个拉莫因是非常备受尊敬的一个科学家，那另一个原因是这就是真相。
Now, many 21st century Christians are also recognized as great scientists.
21世纪被公认的为伟大科学家的基督徒们，就21世纪被公认为伟大科学家的基督徒科学家们有很多。
Many Christians have served faithfully as scientists and very beneficial to society, though they may not be as famous as the scientists I've been talking about.
许多基督徒忠心的服侍，尽管他们没有那么出名，但是他们却被公认为是造福社会的。
It is a fact that today, in the 21st century, many Christians continue to serve well as scientists, many as mighty in their field as occurred in the past.
事实上，在21世纪，许多基督徒继续在他们所选择的职业里面很好的服务着。他们中有许多是忠心的仆人，有一些人就像过去一样，仍然在他们的领域内很强大。
Survey of American scientists determined that 2 million U.S. scientists identified themselves as evangelical Christians.
一项美国科学家调查显示，有200万的美国科学家认为自己是福音派基督徒。
I will talk about just a few of them.
那我接下来会谈论他们其中的一些人。
William Campbell was an Irish and American parasitologist. He discovered a novel therapy against roundworm infection, and he was awarded the 2015 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine.
威廉·坎贝尔，爱尔兰裔美国寄生虫专家，发现了一种治疗蛔虫感染的新疗法，获得了2015年诺贝尔生理学或医学奖。
So this winner of the Nobel Prize just 6 years ago is a very dedicated Christian.
那这个就是在6年前获得诺贝尔奖的这位科学家，他是一位非常敬虔的基督徒。
Werner Arber is a Swiss microbiologist and geneticist, sharing the 1978 Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for the discovery of restriction endonucleases.
沃纳阿伯，他是一位瑞士的生物学和微生物和遗传学家。他因为发现了限制内切酶，他就分享了1978年诺贝尔生理学或医学奖。
John Gurdon is a British developmental biologist. He also received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 2012 for the discovery that mature cells can be converted to stem cells.
约翰·古尔登，他是一位英国的发育生物学家，因为发现成熟细胞可以转换为干细胞而获得2012年诺贝尔生理学或医学奖。
Dr. Gurdon is a very dedicated Christian and shows us with all these Nobel Prizes how common it is for great scientists to be Christians.
Can you say that again, Dr.?
Yes. So John Gurdon shows us a lot because of let me say it differently. So many scientists that are Nobel Prize winners are dedicated Christians, like John Gurdon. I've been naming many of them. John Gurdon is another of these Nobel Prize winners that are dedicated Christians.
这些许多获得诺贝尔奖的科学家们，他们之中许多都是非常敬虔的基督徒。我之前已经列了很多了，那约翰是其中的一位。
Here's another Nobel Prize winner that's a Christian, Gerhard Ertl.
那这有另一位那个获得诺贝尔奖的基督科学家，就是基督徒科学家，就是格哈尔埃尔特尔。
Ertl won the 2007 Nobel Prize in Chemistry.
他2007年获得诺贝尔化学奖。
Here's a quote from Dr. Ertl. I am a Christian and I try to live as a Christian. I read the Bible very often and I try to understand it.
他曾这么说：“我是一位基督徒，并且努力以一位基督徒的身份生活。我经常读圣经，并试图理解它。”
Now, here is a close personal friend of mine, Dr. Henry Schaefer.
那我接下来讲的这位呢，是我一位非常亲近的朋友，就是费舍尔博士。
He is an American computational and theoretical chemist, and he's one of the most highly cited scientists in the world.
这位费舍尔，他是一位美国的计算和理论化学家，他是世界上被引用最多的科学家之一。
So, scientists will cite the work of other scientists, and it's a great honor to be done that. And he is one of the most highly cited scientists in the world.
那作为一个科学家，如果他的著作被其他的科学家引用，这是一个非常高的荣誉。那这个费舍尔他就是世界上被认为引用最多的科学家之一。
He's been nominated for the Nobel Prize. I think he's going to get it.
他曾获得诺贝尔提名，那我自己认为他应该是能获得诺贝尔奖的。
And Dr. Schaefer is one of the most dedicated Christians I have ever met.
那个费舍尔博士呢，他就是我曾经见到过的非常敬虔的基督徒科学家。
He gives lectures like this one I'm giving right now all over the world about great scientists who are Christians.
那他也曾经在全世界都有像我现在在做的类似的这样的一个演讲。
And there are many female Christians who are great scientists.
那同时也有许多女性的基督徒科学家。
One example is Jocelyn Bell Burnell, a female astrophysicist from Northern Ireland.
其中一个例子就是乔瑟琳·贝尔伯内尔，她是一位来自爱尔兰的女天体物理学家。
She discovered the first radio pulsars in 1967, cited as one of the most important discoveries of the 20th century.
他在1967年发现了第一个射电脉冲星，这被认为是20世纪最重要的发现之一。
Just two more. There's Raymond Vahan Damadian, who's a doctor and the inventor of MRI, magnetic scanning device.
还有两位，我还要继续讲两位科学家，其中一位就是雷蒙德瓦汉达马迪安，他是一位医生和发明家，他创造了 MRI， 就是核磁共振扫描仪。
MRI has revolutionized medical diagnosis all over the world.
这在全世界都彻底改变了医学诊断。
And Dr. Damadian is a very strong and dedicated Christian who gives the credit to Almighty God for his discovery.
那他也是位非常敬虔的坚定的基督徒，他把他所有的荣誉、所有的荣耀都归给神。
And another great female scientist who is a strong Christian is Rosalind Picard.
另一位女性的科学家基督徒科学家就是罗莎琳德皮卡德。
Dr. Picard is a professor at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology and a co-founder of a highly successful company in science, Effectiva.
他是麻省理工学院的教授，他同时也是一个非常成功的公司的联合创始人。这个公司叫 Effectiva。
And this is a trend of the 21st century of a great scientist at a great university and also the owner of a successful company.
我现在讲了，这些都是在最近代非常成功的一些教授、一些科学家，还有一些公司的创始人。
I identify with Dr. Picard because she says she was raised an atheist, as I was, but she converted to Christianity as a young adult, like I did.
那我选择皮卡林教授的原因，是因为他说他从小是一位无神论者，他年轻的时候成为基督徒，就像我一样。
So, how is it that we define a Christian who is also a scientist or any other professional?
那我们如何定义一个基督徒职场人士呢？比如说基督徒科学家，或者是其他职业的基督徒。
It is critical that you have the belief that you are a sinner, a person separated from God.
这是非常重要的，就是你要相信你是罪人，是与神隔绝的人。
All these great scientists I just cited believe this.
那所有我刚刚列举的那些科学家都相信这一点。
It is important, critical, that you believe that you can only be reconciled to God by belief in Jesus Christ as his son, and that this is a sure path to a relationship with God.
还有一点非常的重要，就是你只有相信耶稣是神的儿子，并且承认与神建立关系的唯一和确定的途径是耶稣，你才能够与神和好。
All these great scientists that I just showed you believed this.
所有的我刚刚向你们展示的那些科学家们都相信这一点。
Decision to turn your life over to God to serve him and therefore serve others in humility and truth with a changed life.
那决定把你的生命主权交给上帝，服侍他，因此你的生命才可以得到转变，因而呢才能够用谦卑和真理去服侍他人。
Great scientists I showed you, and many thousands of other scientists today believe this.
就是我刚刚向你们展示的那些科学家，也包括成千上万的基督徒科学家，他们都相信这一点。
Finally, to realize that Almighty God does all the work in making you a useful, though maybe not a famous, Christian professional.
最后一点就是意识到那一位全能的上帝他在做工，他使你成为一个也许不是那么著名的，但是却很有用的基督徒，职场基督徒。
These great scientists I showed you all testified to this, that it was God that did the work in them.
刚刚我所向大家展示的那些基督徒呢，都是一个非常好的见证，也就是说，见证到他们所有的成就都是神在做工。
And that is what made them great scientists.
那这就因为神的做工，所以才能让他们成为一个伟大的基督徒，伟大的科学家。
And that is what made them make such a great change in the field of science.
那也是因为这样，他们才能够成为在他们科学领域内改变很多的杰出的人才。
So this final picture is one from my research at Fukushima, Japan.
这张照片是从我自己去在那个福岛做研究的时候拍下的。
You can see these children are very happy now.
你可以看到这些小朋友现在非常的开心。
Their school had been contaminated with radiation that fell out of the sky due to the Fukushima accident.
他们的学校被因为那个福岛的事件被污染了，因为天上有很多的那个受核辐射污染的一些尘灰落到他们学校。
They lived for months with radiation all around their school.
有长达数个月，他们生活的地区都受到了，他们的学校都受到了核辐射的污染。
And you can see my scientific team, we came to their school and we cleaned up and removed all the radiation.
你可以看到我们这个小组，我们这个探险的那个科研小组，我们去到他们的学校，然后我们帮助他们清理学校，把那些遭受到核辐射的污染的东西都清理掉。
Now the fear of the radiation is gone in their life.
那现在他们生命中那些被核辐射就是由核辐射造成的那些恐惧已经没有了。
Modern age of science has consistently had large numbers of scientists, some great and some just regular like me, who follow Christ.
现代科学呢，一直有许多伟大的科学家甚至也有一些普通的科学家，就像我一样，我们都跟随耶稣，并且相信圣经。
We follow Christ and the Bible, and there is a long pattern continued today of great and positive impacts on science.
那我们都跟随耶稣，也都相信圣经，这样一个长期的模式在今天仍然继续，他们对科学界仍然有许多非常重要和积极的影响。
So I invite you to consider the claims of Christ, as I did when I was a young man.
那我邀请大家一起来思想神的话语，就像我年轻的时候那样。
And I invite you to consider the evidence that science and the Christian faith
那
are
我邀
matched.
请大家一起来思想，其实也一起去看一下一些好多的证据，都表明科学与信仰是一致的。
Thank you for listening, and I invite you to look at the many Christian organizations today that line up science and the Christian faith.
那感谢大家今天能够来听我讲这些。那我也非常的鼓励大家能够去多看一些科学组织所发布的一些内容，他们都在强调科学与信仰是一致的。
Thank you for listening.
感谢大家的倾听。